Hello, good evening. We are starting our webinar, so thank you to be present. And today, what are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about engines or powertrains, as you wish. And the thing is, which engine should we choose for the vehicle we're going to buy? So I'm going to show you the summary. We have basically 5 points. So we have, first of all, the engine selection, and then we're going to switch to the different type of electrified vehicles. And we are going to do that because obviously this is the area where the main questions still are how should we choose between the different vehicles, electrified vehicles that are available today on the market. Thirdly, we'll be looking to the way to charge these vehicles. And finally, as well, how we should handle the payment of the charging whenever we are on the public spot. And last but not least, we will talk about a new product available at the ACL, which is called ACL Electrolyse. But before going on, I'm going to introduce myself. So I'm Antonio da Parma Ferramacho. I'm head of mobility technologies at the ACL. I've been here now for almost 3 years. And my background is engineering. So I've been working for more than 25 years now in the automotive industry. In the beginning, it was for a tier 1 supplier. After that, I've been a consultant for various customers, and one of them was the EU institutions where I actually worked on electrified projects. So it was hybrid cars as well as electric cars. And as well, since 10 years, I've been able to work as a press reporter, meaning that I've been able to test many vehicles since then, including hybrid and electric. The way I propose we handle this webinar today is that while I'm going through the different subjects, you'll be able to actually ask questions through our chat, be it in Facebook or LinkedIn. And I will make a pause after each subject and take the time to answer to your questions. Another thing I want to mention, I'm trying to go quickly because last time we went over our time, and I will try to speed up this time. Another thing I want as well to inform is that we at the ACL always try to have an objective and neutral analysis. So we have no interest of giving advantage to one or the other technology. So moving on to the first subject, which is which engine for my car. So we have different choices. In the past, these choices were basically petrol and diesel. So this was basically what we were doing up until a few years, knowing very well that, okay, if you drive a lot, then you should get a diesel, elsewhere, get a petrol. But today we have 3 more choices, at least at the moment. We have the electrified vehicles, which include HEVs, so hybrid, self-charging hybrid. So what are they? For instance, the most known of them is the Prius that started in '97. We have as well the PHEV for plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. These are almost the same as the previous one, but the difference is that they have a bigger battery and they have an onboard chargers so that you can plug them onto the net, electrical net, and get then a quicker charging. And of course, a longer electrical range. And finally, we have the BEV for battery electric vehicle, which actually is an electric car with a big battery that is your only source of energy. So this is the mainstream offer that we have today. Before going further, I want as well to mention the mild hybrid vehicles, which are actually used on petrol and diesel engine vehicles. What are they? Basically, it's a very mild way of hybridization, meaning that we have a small electrical system that is 48 volts based, so that we can actually operate an alternator, a starter alternator, or a starter generator that is able to actually start and help the vehicle accelerate, and then by this means be able to drop the fuel consumption, hence the CO2 emissions. The gains there are about 5% or slightly higher than that, but because of that, we don't consider that as real electrified vehicles. Of course, I want as well to mention other choices like gas vehicles, so LPG or CNG. This is a solution that is available today that could be a good alternative between the internal combustion engines and the future of full electric. The thing is that on one side, governments don't favor them almost anymore. And on the other side, OEMs or let's say car manufacturers don't have a big offer, and actually the offer is dropping. Last but not least, I will as well mention the hydrogen, which is a fuel cell electric vehicle. I will not go into details, just mention that this technology is basically an electric vehicle that has got a hydrogen tank and a fuel cell that transforms the hydrogen and the oxygen into electricity and water. I will not develop this subject here because, we are not very far into that technology at the moment. There are some cars on the market like Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, there is as well a Mercedes. But the problem we have at the moment is producing hydrogen on a clean and efficient way. This will probably come in the future, but at the moment we will concentrate on what's on sale and that we can use. So in order to select the powertrain or the engine that we should put on in our cars, there are different points that we could, or different variables that we could take into consideration. I've just put 3 of them here. Most known is, of course, best deals, incentives, but as well usage profile. And we are on the opinion at the ACL that we should favor the usage profile, because this is basically what's going to condition the way you are going to utilize your vehicle. And we believe that choosing the wrong powertrain choosing a powertrain for the wrong usage is not a good thing. So we're going to go in more details now. How to choose that. So to do that, we propose you 2 things at the ACL. One is to come to our mobility loft and to get the advice. So a personal advice that we can provide to you. Of course, you need to come here. It takes time. We should count about half an hour to an hour, depending on your the details you're asking. But we have as well developed in the meantime, so the mobility loft is actually on now for a year and a half. But in the meantime, with the knowledge we have acquired from the different questions we have got from our members, we have developed a tool, electronic tool that you can use going on our website. And I'm going to go with you through these steps to show you how to use this tool and how it works. So I have to stop sharing now. So, and then I'm going to go into another screen, which is the one I mentioned to you. No, it didn't, sorry, it didn't take it. So, so this one, we should, I know, sorry. Yeah. Right, we are getting there. So here we're going to go to the website of the ACL. You go to test and advise, then you go to advise cars, and you get to our selection, here you go, which engine for my car. You click there, and then you go to the tool we have developed. So basically what you have is a little bit of text here explaining what it is. So it is just what I did. And here we have the 8 questions. On these questions, I'm going to go through them with you. And I propose that we make a few examples, very extreme examples, so that it's easy to understand. First question is, how many kilometers do you cover every day? So let's go to the extreme, and you will understand very quickly where I'm getting. More than 60 kilometers per day. Every year I do more than 20,000 kilometers. I do mainly road or motorway. Okay. I go regularly on long journeys. Let's play it fully. So I use sometimes a trailer, and I cannot charge at home. And my budget, let's say it's medium, and I'm concerned about fuel costs, so I want low fuel cost. I guess you have understood that I was talking about the diesel, and of course it makes sense because covering long distances and mainly on roads and motorway, diesel is the best choice we can make at the moment. I'm not saying that you cannot do that with another powertrain. I'm just saying that this is the most logical one. So let's go to the other extreme, where I would say that I do less than 30 kilometers per day, that I do less than 10,000 kilometers per year, that I drive mostly in urban areas, that I never go on long journeys, and that my driving is economic. And of course, I can charge at home. And well, I won't touch the budget on the buying of the car. Maybe I want low maintenance costs. And of course, I think you've guessed that we're going to a fully electric vehicle, which is a BEV, for battery electric vehicle. So this tool is actually not a 100% precise tool. You probably understand this is a tool that gives you indications and at least a trend on where to go. Now, let's play the game a little bit more and say I want to have a solution in between, and for that I will take my own case, which is I drive mostly of the time less than 30 kilometers per day, but I do between 10 and 20,000 per year. I have a mixed usage, so I go sometimes in the city as well, outside of the city, and I as well do sometimes long journeys. My driving, honestly, yeah, I like dynamic driving, so of course, and I cannot charge at home because I live in an apartment. My budget, let's leave it in, well, okay, I can put it in low. Let's see what it does. And then to me, let's say the fuel factor is not important. What do I get? Petrol. And actually, that's what I use. I have a petrol engine for my car. And so that gives you some kind of sensitivity. But let's look here, the results. I have 92% for gasoline and 75% for petrol. Maybe if I go to an economic drive, maybe it will change to something else. You know, logically, we should go to hybrid. Yes, so we go to the hybrid, which is the self-charging hybrid, so the Toyota Prius type. So this is to give you an example on how to use this tool. I propose you to go through that and play with it. And maybe you can give us your comments still now during the webinar, or later. You can send us some mails about this. So now help me to change screens. I should go here, stop sharing. Yeah, okay. And then go back to this one. No, this one. It's this one. Yeah, okay. Yes, so we are back now. So I think we've ended the we've ended the first point. So are there some questions?
We have one question over here. It's home charging in apartments. Is it always possible? What things can I check first to help?
Well, that's a very good question. No, it's not always possible. And then what you need to check is with your syndic. so the entity that actually does the management of the building, to see if there is a possibility to ask for putting some charging stations. And to do so, if the syndic, I mean, if the other owners of the apartments in the building are in agreement, then you can ask for instance, Diego, which is an entity that has been created by Enovos with installers that know how to install charging stations, and then they will come to the building. They will look into the electricity system of your building and advise you on what needs to be done and how much it will cost. Another question?
No further questions now.
Good. So let's move. I'm trying to speed up. So different types of electrical vehicles. So here we have a little bit more to talk about. So we have built a nice brochure recently. Actually, just I think it came in today or yesterday, the print version at least. So that's the one you see there. And you can as well consult it through our website on the address that you see there. So basically, it was on the same spot as the tool to select the powertrain, and you can find it there. So in this brochure, you will get basically all the information that I'm going to go through now. So information about electric cars, electric and hybrid cars, information about the charging stations at home or in the public area, and as well the charging cards if you are going to charge your car on the public area. So now to go in more deeply into the details of the electrified powertrains. I took this nice view that I found into the Toyota website. I think it's it's helpful to understand. So you see on the left side here, you'll see the components of an electrified vehicles. We always start by these three components, which are an electrical motor, a battery, and a power control unit. Basically, the power control unit is where you transform the voltages as well when you go from alternative current to DC and so on. So this is high tech, but just for you to know. And if we look on the right side, we have the different type of electrified vehicles. We will look, as I said before, mainly to the tree on the bottom, because the fuel cell, we'll treat that another time. We'll start by the one in the bottom, which is a self-charging hybrid. So it uses the three components that I mentioned on the left side, plus an internal combustion engine. If we go up one level, we look at the plug-in hybrid. It's about the same as the one before. What we are adding a charger, because in this case, you need to go to be able to actually charge your vehicle by plugging it into the net. And as well, the battery will be of a different type and bigger, much bigger than the one of the HEVs. So just to give you an example, an HEV has got a battery a little bit below 2 kilowatt hours. On a PHEV, you have batteries, I think it's from 10 up to 24, even 30, depending on the models, because if you have big cars, then you have bigger batteries and they are more expensive. Finally, we go to the BEVs, which are the fully electric vehicles. So they take only the energy from their battery. And so in this case, they just need a charger on top of the three components that we mentioned before. So here, we're going to go a little bit more in details, category by category on the self-charging hybrid. What are the advantages? So obviously, it's the flexibility of being able to self-charging. So you don't need to plug the vehicle in. The vehicle handles all that by taking the energy by its braking behavior, and as well by using the internal combustion engine to charge the battery whenever it is necessary. Doing so, they can achieve a fuel economy or a CO2 reduction of about 25 to 30%. I want to mention that this fuel economy reduction is mainly on the urban usage, because obviously that's when you actually accelerate and brake the most, because if you go on a journey on the motorway, you can really understand that if you have very constant speeds, you don't take advantage of the deceleration and acceleration to actually use your hybrid system. So if you do long distance driving, hybrid self-charging doesn't make sense. And then the price increase is actually an advantage because it's not too high. It's about 2,000 euros more than a petrol type car. So basically it puts it at the price of a diesel, I would say. On the inconvenience, we have a lower performance in general. Let's say if you compare it to other petrol or turbo diesel cars, of course, you won't have these strong accelerations because the goal here is fuel economy. The car is a bit heavier as well, about 80 kilos, but that's still acceptable, I would say. But the other disadvantage is that you don't have many choices on the market because, as I mentioned, we have mainly brands from Asia with, for instance, Toyota, Lexus, Honda, Hyundai, and so on. Moving to the plug-in hybrid, basically, it's the same as the one before, but you have a bigger battery and you have a charger. So the advantage of this plug-in hybrid vehicle is that you have a higher driving range, a higher electric range, and as well you have a higher driving range than a normal, I would say, battery electric vehicles, because then you have two sources of energy. You have the battery and you have the fuel. So most of the time is petrol, but it can as well be diesel. You can as well choose between the driving modes, meaning that if you drive in the city, then you can be in fully electric, or I would say maybe a little bit hybrid. And then if you do long distances, then you rely on your ICE, it stands for internal combustion engine. So this gives us a lot of flexibility because you can always choose between fuel or electricity, and you are never stuck because, okay, if your battery is empty, then you can just go on with the fuel. So that's the nice thing about this technology. You have a low fuel consumption and low CO2 emissions if the battery is charged, because if you run this car with an empty battery, then you have quite high fuel consumption. If we compare to, let's say, the 2 or 3 liters that are usually advertised, it's multiplied by 3, 4 if you drive this vehicle empty battery in the city. Another point that is interesting is that the charging time usually is not too long because the battery is not that large. On the disadvantages, you have the price that is about 10,000 euros higher than a normal internal combustion engine. We have cases where it is a bit lower, so it's improving because this technology is being spread and basically so the scale scaling the production makes it a bit less expensive. Another disadvantage is because you have a smaller battery, you need to charge it more often. Basically, I would say every evening when you come home, you need to charge it, and then. You have a high fuel consumption if you don't charge it regularly, what I just mentioned before. It is much heavier than a normal internal combustion engine because it needs to carry the battery, the electric motor, the power control unit, and the charger. And all that together can sum up to about 400, 500 kilos, depending on the models. And it has an impact on fuel consumption whenever you drive with empty battery. It has as well small impact on comfort and handling because the vehicle is a bit heavier. Going to battery electric vehicle, here it's quite simple. You just have the 3 elements plus the charger. Well, the big advantage of this vehicle, of course, is that you have no pollution, no local pollution of pollutants, and you have no CO2 emissions when you use it on the spot. Of course, we will talk about the batteries later and the emissions of production electricity, but here we have to admit that it's a very clean car on the usage. It's very comfortable driving this car, mainly in the city. It's very quiet. You don't have vibration, and I would say it's really relaxing. It's a car that a type of vehicle that is quite nice to use in the city and around the city. The running costs are very low because you don't have gearbox, you don't have exhaust, you don't have oil to change or belts. So basically, it's a very cheap car to run. It's easy to charge at home when you can. So if you have your private home, or if you have the chance of being in an apartment with a charging possibility, that's nice. You can as well charge it on the charging network here in Luxembourg. And as I said, it's ideal to drive in town and around. These advantages, the price increase is about the same as for the plug-in hybrid, 10,000. It's as well much heavier. Usually these cars are close to 2 tons or more. If you take big cars, it can as well be 2.5. The battery range can be affected significantly by the high speeds and the dynamic driving, meaning that if you drive these cars on the autoroute, you can see that the range is going down very quickly because basically that's typical of electric cars. Their engines or their motors are very efficient all the time. And then when you drive them on highway at high speeds, so you see directly the effect of the energy you need to move this car at higher speeds. Another area where these battery electric cars are not very efficient is when it's very cold outside, meaning if you have negative temperatures, you can have a battery range that drops by 30%, which is quite significant. So you need to take that into account whenever you choose your car, because you need to be able to have the range needed for your everyday driving. Charging time is significantly higher than filling up the tank of a gasoline or a petrol or diesel car, obviously. Okay, we have now quick charging, but even though it takes longer. And then the charging stations network are still in development. Here in Luxembourg, we are not bad currently and still improving. So I'm going to talk now about the incentives of these cars. Plug-in hybrids and electric cars have incentives. Electric cars is 8,000 euros, plug-in hybrid is 2,500, but be sure that you have less than 50 grams of CO2 per kilometer, otherwise you're not entitled for this incentive. Normal hybrids, or let's say self-charging hybrids, don't get an incentive. And now I want to go into another small tool we have developed, and it can be helpful for a buyer of an electrified vehicle. It's on our website. I'm going to show you where. Well, actually, it was next to the other tool that we showed you before. Basically, it's a PDF file where you have the listing of all the electrified vehicles on sale currently in Luxembourg. I give you here an example of the first page, and then you see that you have different columns. The first one tells you the different type of powertrain. So you have BEV, HEV, PHEV, and as well FCEV. Then you have the battery capacity, which can be very interesting to know. You have as well the type of charger you have, and most importantly, the power of the charger, because this is going to tell you how quickly you will be able to charge your battery. So not only is the charging station important in terms of power, but as well the charger you have into your vehicle. And then as well you have the range and the consumption of electricity or electricity and fuel when it is a plug-in hybrid or a hybrid. And then a very important column is the last one. So the emissions of CO2, whenever the emissions are above 50 grams, like here, we've put them in with a red background so that you know that in this case, you don't have the entitlement for the 2,500 euros incentive. And then you have the price. Yeah, before going over this section, I want to spend some time with the battery production and recycling, because some of you might say, okay, the electric car is nice, zero pollution, zero CO2 when used, but what about the production of the batteries? Well, of course, production of batteries does emit CO2, because whatever you do, when you operate a machine, it needs electricity or it needs fuel, and then there is a need for energy, and this energy most of the time is producing CO2. So Of course, this makes a difference, and we should not only look at the local usage of the electric car, but as well the emissions polluted for the lifetime. And this is a point that we can check. I can show you a link so you can check how much CO2 an electric car emits more than a normal car before being used, so in production. The other issue as well is about pollution and labor conditions. We have all heard about these stories of child working in some mines and so forth. Well, this is addressed at the moment by the EU because there are some laws that try to regulate these aspects, as well as the aspects of recyclability. So at the moment, there is a law that requires that the battery is recycled for about 50% of its weight. There are as well talks to increase this percentage to, at one point, come to fully recyclability. But that's to come. Another point as well, we need to mention that we use natural resources and we need to take care of that, especially when we select an electric car. Size of the battery is important. So, sorry, the tool I was talking to you about is Carboncounter.lu. It's a tool that is based on the one developed by the MIT in the US. And basically what this tool does, it looks at the different type of, or different models and brands of vehicles, and they have made an assessment of the CO2 produced during the production of the vehicle, during the life of the vehicle, and at the recycling of the vehicle. And basically, if you go in there and play a little bit with the different variables and look at the different car models and brands, you can have an idea of the CO2 emissions of a vehicle compared to the other. So we've now are at the end of point 2, and I would like to ask if there are some questions.
There is a question in regard to the previous topic. Are there any restrictions from the firefighters in regards of charging points in an apartment? If you have any information about that.
Okay, I guess this goes to the question of having an electric car that is on fire into a public or private parking, underground, and so forth, and so on. Yeah. Well, at the moment, I'm not aware of restrictions for electrical cars. I think there have been a few cases where electrical cars got on fire. And this can be an issue, and we need to look into that, not when it's just on the road, but especially if it's within a closed area, because stopping the fire of a battery is very difficult. At the moment, basically the only real solution that exists is to take a container full of water, put the car inside, and then wait until it's completely wet and that the fire is over, because even if you go with a fire extinguisher on a battery that is on fire, it can pick up fire afterwards. So yeah, that can be an issue, but it's very seldom that you have fire on a battery electric car that is not on usage.
We have another question. Do you think the €8,000 subsidiary or subsidiary for EVs will come back after March at some point, or is it more a one-off? How do you see the subsidiaries in the future?
Well, it's a good question, and actually it's a very good question, because the state government has told us that the 8,000 or €2,500 is valid until the 31st of March of this year. We have heard that they are looking into a new system, so incentives will remain. I've got information that incentives will remain until the 31st of December 2021. Now, I don't know if between the 31st of March up until that date, if there will be a change, but if changes come, they will be based on some criteria that we don't know yet, but that could be, for instance, price or fuel consumption, or sorry, electricity consumption, or even battery size. I don't know, but these are some ideas that I think we can elaborate on. Is that it?
Yeah, no further questions.
Good. So I guess we are on time. So point number 3 is how to charge these electrified vehicles. First point is, well, charging at home. So at home, we have basically 2 solutions. One is called the ICCB, or the, this cable with a box that you get with your PHEV or fully electric vehicle when you purchase it. Basically, this is a solution to charge on a 220 plug. It works, but you need to be aware that you must check your electrical system before using it, because of course the system is going to try to take most of the power it can from your system, from your electrical system. So in the case you have a system with 10 amps, then you will be able to charge at 2.3 kilowatt. And if you have a system with 16 amps, you can go up to 3.7 kilowatts. But very important, you should make your system checked by a professional electrician, so he's sure that you're not overloading this part of your electrical system in your house. The other system, well, I just want to mention as well that you can as well have a similar cable with, well, the box, by the way, in this cable is a box that is controlling your current and is a safety device. You can have some similar that works on 3 phases, so 380 volts, and then you are able to go higher on power, 11 kilowatt hours, eventually even 22. But then you certainly need to check your system. Of course, you need to have the 380 in your garage to be able to do that. The other system is a fixed home charger that is actually installed by a professional. Creos has decided that although you could go higher on power, but they limit it at 11 kilowatts, which is okay, because if you have 11 kilowatts of power to charge a 50 kilowatt hour battery, you can basically do that in 5 hours. If there is no power, I would say, modulation. And these chargers, you can find them, well, you can contact Diego in Luxembourg, which is an entity that has been put in place by Enovos, and Diego actually puts together all the certified electricians that are allowed to install this charger at home. So you can go onto the website, look into an electrician that is close to your place, have the person come, and then you will check everything in your house and tell you, well, if your system needs to be upgraded or not. It will as well propose you different types of home chargers and as well make the installation. Just to give you an idea, you as well can have some incentives on these home chargers. It can go up to 50% of the cost without taxes, and that's maximum 750 euros for a simple charger and 1,200 euros for an intelligent charger. So I'm not going to go into details what is simple, what is intelligent, because we don't have much time, but you can have all this information at My Diego or Enovos. So we are going to move now to the public charging network. Here in Luxembourg, we have the network is called Chargy, and it's called accelerated charging because we are now moving to another league. We are going up to 22 kilowatts power charging. So it's pretty simple. You go with your electric car there, you plug it in. You need something to activate the charging station. We will talk about that later. But I want to mention something here is that it's not because the charging power is 22 kilowatt hours that you will get the 22 kilowatt hours, because as I said before, it will depend on the charger you have installed in your car. Some manufacturers propose you different type of chargers, and then if you want to be the big one, you need to pay extra. For instance, there is a brand that has got a charger of 7 kilowatt hours, and if you want to upgrade, you can upgrade to 11, and it costs about 300 or 400 euros. So this will then be the conditioning point for the speed of charging, because as I explained before, there is a direct relation of the charger's power and the battery charging time. Another thing not to forget is the charging cable, because there are at least two types of charging cables. So the ones with the type 2, which is the one used here in Europe, you can have a single phase cable or a three-phase cable. If you have a single phase cable, you will never get to the 22, of course. So if you have a car with a charger with more than 7 kilowatt hours, then you should get a three-phase. So the charging stations in Luxembourg are being developed. There is a plan to install 800 across the country, as you can see. On year to date, we are at 460. We are a bit late on the schedule. We should have been completed in 2020. And well, there are some issues that mainly linked to P+R that are not built yet. And to use these stations, you can use the local card that I will talk about later. So now we move to the fast charging, what we now call the supercharger in Luxembourg. And it is as well called HPC, for high power charging, or on some brands like Tesla, they call it supercharger. But basically the difference here is that we move from alternative current to direct current. And we are then able to charge at much higher power. These fast charging chargers are available from 50 kilowatt power up to 250, depending on the different areas where you go. Of course, here again, this power of charging will be conditioned by, or let's say the speed will be conditioned by the charger, the DC charger of your car. So it's easy to know, you always pick the lower value and then you have your power of charging. In Luxembourg, we have just heard, well, we have actually been to the inauguration of the first two supercharging stations. There will be, as I showed before, 160 and 320 kilowatts, which is quite nice. The plan is to build 88 chargers across the country, and I think it's it's spread in 19 different spots across the country. So the first two are now in operation in the Kirchberg, just in front of the university. And we've been informed that by the end of 2021, there will be the ones on the, on the fuel stations. I was going to say charging stations. Fuel stations on the autoroutes, mainly Belgium and France will have as well charging installed in 2021. And the plan is to have this supercharging completed in 2023. And to operate this supercharging, we can either use an drive card that I will talk about, or a credit card, which is different versus the normal charging. You cannot use a credit card. Now I'm going to give you some examples of charging times. So we took this example from the point that in Luxembourg, the average driven distance is 40 kilometers. And we took a 20 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers car, which is the average as well. So so just to mention, the energy consumption of an electrical vehicle is in average 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Of course, if you have a smaller vehicle, you can go down to 13, 14 if you drive low speed. And if you have a very large SUV or powerful electrical car, you can go above 30. So it's about the same as with gasoline or diesel cars. The heavier, the bigger, and the more fuel consumption. So to give you an example, so if you use the home charger of 2.3 kilowatts to cover the 40 kilometers, you will need 3.5 hours basically. If you can go up to 3.7 kilowatt hours, so with the 16 amps, you then do it in about 2 hours and 10 minutes. And if you have your private charging system, so your fixed charging system at home, you can charge in 45 minutes. So it's quite nice. So it means that for your daily driving, it's quickly charged. If you use your car on, if you charge your car on a public charging station, and if it can go up to 22 kilowatt of power, then you will do it in 25 minutes. And lastly, if you go to a supercharger, and we picked here the smallest one, the 50 kilowatt, then you can charge your 40 kilometers in 10 minutes. Well, now we are at the end of point 3. Are there some questions?
There's one question. Do you know the trend in resale values of HEV, PHEV, and BEV?
Wow. It's, yeah, I will look at that later. It's a tough question. Trends, I think if we talk about the trend, well, the trend will go up because in the past, these vehicles were not known, so there was no big interest. So now we will have more people interested in buying used electrified vehicles. On the other hand, and that's probably where you want to go, and why you ask the question, is the problem of the battery. So the battery in the future, well, sorry, the battery after a few years of usage degrades and will have less range, of course. And this can be a player into the end value of the vehicle. For instance, if you sell your vehicle, you buy now, let's say, I take an example. I buy now a car which has 300 kilometers range. And if I compare it to the one that I could have bought 10 years ago, the same car would have got 150 kilometers range. So you can imagine that now the buyer of a new electric car is not interested to buy a used electric car from 10 years old, because not only the battery capacity was lower, but it has degraded. So it probably lost 20-30% in these 10 years. So the thing is, it's very difficult to predict what is going to be the impact on resale value of a car, of an electrical car, because of battery aging. So that's an unknown we have at the moment. And that's why we are going to talk to you in point 5 of an interesting system that we are going to propose. So Felix, you were showing me a question, but I could not read it.
No, it was regarding the electrolysis.
Okay, it was concerning electrolysis. Okay, good. So if there are no other questions, I'll then proceed to point 4. Yep. So point 4 are the payment cards for the charging systems. In Luxembourg, we have mainly 2 types of cards provided by Enovos. It's the EnoDrive Go and the EnoDrive Zen. The EnoDrive Go is a prepaid card. The EnoDrive Zen is a card that actually, it's a debit card. So you give your banking references, and then you are billed end of the month only on your consumption. Just want to point out that if you are ACL member, you have this card for free because it costs 12 euros, not the consumption of the electricity, of course, if you provide your membership or your member, ACL member, when you sign in. Then, of course, you can as well use other cards in Luxembourg, mainly international cards from, I mean, there are fuel suppliers, there are other specialists that I will mention on my next slide. And some work well, some don't. We have tried some of them, and basically the ones I'm going to show here now on the right side, which are as well valid for Europe, work well. So we have tested New Motion, Plug Surfing, and Charge Map. They work in Luxembourg. Other ones work as well, but we didn't test all of them. And so if you want to drive abroad, now there's good news is since a few months, the EnoDrive card is as well working across Europe in more than 180,000 charging points. So that's a good news. And you can select the other cards. So basically, we advise you, if you are planning to make a long journey on an electrical car, to select, well, to have with you at least 2 different cards, because you never know, one cannot work on a specific charger. So that's safety issue. Yeah, already the end of this one. Maybe then I take some time because I did well on timing. What I'm going to do now is maybe talk to you a bit more talk about the driving of the cars on long distance. So electric cars, it's perfectly possible to do long distance journeys with an electric car. The only thing you need to take into consideration is that there are more, let's say, variables with charging an electric car than you have with fueling a petrol or a diesel car, because when you go to the petrol station, you just put your nozzle into your tank and you fill it up. But with an electrical car, I'm saying that because I've experienced it, you can have a problem with the communication from your car to the charging station. You can have a problem because maybe the charging station is not operating because, well, these charging stations, they are connected through physical cables, but as well through SIM cards. Not all of them, but some are, so that can be as well a problem. And then there is as well the communication needed between the car and the charging station. And so these are many variables that if one goes wrong, then you can have a problem. Another issue is that if you get to a charging station with a lot of cars busy, well, maybe you have to wait for having your station available. And as well, the impact can be that once you start charging, you cannot charge at full power because maybe at that time of the day, if there is a lot of people asking for the energy at the same time, you will have a lower intensity or lower power of charging. And that means that your charging time will be longer than anticipated, and then you realize that you need to plan ahead. You cannot be really just in time with such journeys. So you need to always plan some buffer time so that you are safe on timing. But otherwise, you can travel with an electric car. Okay, so now I'm moving to the last point, which is ACL electrolysis. Well, what is it? We call it the easy way to drive electric, and basically it's a new product that we have launched last December. And this product we have launched it linked to this question that you asked before: what to do with a used car with an old battery? What is the resale value, and so forth? Actually, we have thought about it, and we have talked with people from the leasing field, and we believe this is an interesting solution, that is leasing an electric car. Because if you lease an electric car, then you don't have to cope with these items of the battery aging, or and hence the resale value of the car. And as well, you don't have to cope with the recuperation of the incentive that the states. This is all done. So basically, what is ACL electrolysis is a leasing system for private people, member of the ACL, that will be able to select a series of models that have been identified by our experts at the ACL, which are the best deals of the moment, which have reasonable performance, reasonable power consumption, and reasonable battery size. And I want to point out this because I believe it's important that at the moment, most people that use electric cars use them in the city or around the city. Not many people use these cars to make long journeys. So if we think well into the natural resources as well as the CO2 emissions, it doesn't then make big sense to have a car with a very large battery that you drive mainly in the city or around the city, because basically your range need is not that important. And going from there, we have identified that an average battery size of about 50 kilowatt hours is really sufficient to do most of your everyday duties. And doing so, a battery of 50 kilowatt hours is basically half the size of the larger battery electric vehicles that you find on the market. And by getting these cars, not only are they more respectful of the environment, but as well cheaper, because the most important, well, let's say the most expensive part of an electric vehicle is the battery. So that's why we have taken this route, and we hope that this will answer some needs. I'm going to show you the offers we have. So as I said, these are best deals that are, sorry, I want to point out our partners, which are LeasePlan, Spurcase, and Enovos. So these are the partners we work with. We have selected them because we believe these are the ones that are closer to the electric vehicle business. And then, so as I explained to you, we selected these vehicles based on the criteria I've listed. And on top of that, we are able to advise you on the different issues linked to electrical cars or hybrid cars as well. So if you can actually either come to us physically at the Mobility Loft or contact us by phone, and we will be able to help you on the different points, which are powertrain, test drives. We can as well arrange test drives. We can inform you about charging stations, the charging cards. And on top of that, with the ACL electrolysis, you have on top of this advising, you get 3 free days per year of thermal car rental, because here at the ACL we have a fleet of 200 cars, normal cars, different sizes, and if your goal is to have locally an electrical car you drive every day, and then if once in a while you go on a long journey, you can still come to us and rent a car that has a range where you don't have any anxiety. So this offer is based on the best deals we can have at the moment. We work with our partners to identify these cars. They will be renewed on a quarterly basis. So you see now, for instance, on this slide, the Fiat 500e is no more available. We have replaced it by the Smart Fortwo because we had the possibility. The Tesla that we had as well offered is no more available. I just want to mention that the Tesla is the small one, the Model 3 with the small battery. So it still fits in our criteria. And you can see that the prices there go from low 300 to high 500. So we believe it's still reasonable. And I want to mention that these prices are all included, meaning that what is included is the price of the car. The incentive is already in, so you don't have to spend your time to recover the incentive 7 months after. The insurance is included, the maintenance, the repairs, all taxes, and as well the tires, meaning that you have as well provision for winter tires. And that's it. So the price you see there is the price you pay. There is no upfront deposit, and there is no last high payment. So if it's 300 euros per month, it will be 300 euros per month for 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, depending on what you choose. I guess we are at the end. So do we have other questions?
I have one last question regarding to this last topic, which is leasing is already offered by OEMs, so original equipment manufacturers.
Brands, yeah, car brands.
Car companies, yeah. What are the benefits of ACL electrolysis?
Well, the first benefit is, of course, the advice. If you come to us, I take an example. Like yesterday, we had a member that called me and he said, well, I'm interested in buying an electric car, but I'm hesitating between a few models. And currently we have 3 models available on tests, and these were the models he was hesitating on. So he came, he tested the Smart, he tested the Leaf, and he tested the Corsa a bit, but basically it's the same powertrain as the Peugeot 208 that we are offering. Different car, but same powertrain. And so the advantage of that is already on the service. You have a service with a neutral advice. We don't have any advantage of selling a Peugeot, a Smart, a Nissan, a Tesla, a Mazda, and well, they are here for test. That's one thing. As well, we will advise you on the charging stations, and we will do that on a very neutral way. I have to say as well that we have well-trained people that are able to test cars very often and of different brands, which is not the case of a single brand. So they will obviously only try to sell their own car because that's what they have for sale. And so I would say, yes, service, neutrality. You have the 3 free days of internal combustion engine car per year. and you have different offers. I'm going to move quickly for something. Sorry, that was the funny ending because we have the alarm that was going to switch on. I was just on time to cut it. So do we have other questions?
No.
So
how can members reach you if they should have any further questions?
Damn it. So yeah, you can reach me by phone by calling the main number of ACL, so 45004551, and then they will pass me, well, pass you on to me, or you can as well reach me by email. You can find my email on, I don't know if I've put it here actually, but basically it's Parma. We will put it on the, it's done already.
We can put it in the
we
chat.
will put it on the chat, right? So I think we're done. So just in time. Thank you to have attended to this session. I hope it answered most of the questions. If not, you can still contact us, and we'll be happy to help. Thank you and good evening.